Hello everyone, my name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute. Thank you for joining me for Preston's Ponderings. We're involved in an in-depth study of Matthew 16, 27 and 28, where Jesus said, "For the Son of Man will come in the glory of the Father with his angels, and shall reward every man according to his works. Verily I say unto you, there are some standing here which shall not taste of death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." Well, we've been examining many different aspects of this great passage. I'm going to share with you in this segment one of the aspects that just is so marvelous to me. I've written a book entitled, Like Father, Like Son, on Clouds of Glory. It is based upon Jesus' statement, the Son of Man will come in the glory of the Father. Have you ever read a passage about 1,000,000 times, and then one day you look at it and something that you've never ever seen jumps right off the passage, kind of slaps you across the face and says, "Hello?" Well, some years ago, that's exactly what this passage did with me. I was reading it, and that little term, "in the glory of the Father," jumped off the page at me and said, "Hey Don, what does this mean?" I began to read the commentaries, and I was surprised. I was somewhat amazed that so few commentaries actually comment on the meaning of "in the glory of the Father." I finally found some. I had begun to see what I thought it meant. I finally discovered some very notable, very reputable, very famous commentaries who really, in a way, confirmed what I had begun to see from the Scripture itself. And that is this. When Jesus said, the Son of Man will come in the glory of the Father, he was basically saying he was going to come in the same glory and in the same manner that the Father had come in the past. Now, when I say that, there may be some folks who say, well, what do you mean that Jesus was going to come in judgment like the Father had come in judgment in the past? Where had the Father ever come in judgment in the past? Well, in ensuing programs, we will investigate that. I'm simply going to give the premise at this time. I'm going to introduce something to you at this time that I think will challenge you. We will then expound and expand on this concept and demonstrate it beyond a shadow of a doubt in upcoming segments. But here is the basic argument. Jesus said his coming in judgment of all men was going to be in the glory of the Father. To come in the glory of the Father meant that he was going to come as the Father had come before. But the Father had never come literally, visibly, bodily, quote, physically, unquote, before. Therefore, Jesus' coming in judgment of every man would not be a literal, visible, bodily, quote, physical, unquote, coming of the Lord. Now, let me formulate another argument for you very quickly. This is really just an introductory food for thought, tantalizing, get my hook in you type of argument. But let me present it like this. The coming of the Lord of Matthew 16:27 is the second coming. Very few people deny that. The coming of the Lord, i.e. the second coming of Christ, is the coming of the Lord of 2 Peter chapter 3. The coming of the Lord of 2 Peter chapter 3 is to bring in the new heaven and the new earth, foretold by Isaiah in Isaiah 64 through 66. Now, virtually all scholars acknowledge this. This is not a new argument. It's not strictly a preterist argument, okay? You need to understand that. All throughout the entire history of Christianity, it has been understood that the promise of 2 Peter chapter 3 is the promise taken and made by Isaiah 64 through 66. Now, I want to focus right here on Isaiah 64. verses 1 to 3. Read this with me. Oh, that you would rend the heavens, that you would come down, that the mountains might shake at your presence, as fire burns brushwood, as fire causes water to boil, to make your name known to your adversaries, that the nations may tremble at your presence. Now watch this, when you did, that's past tense, when you did awesome things for which we did not look, you came down. The mountains shook at your presence. Do you catch that? Do you see the power of that? Israel is depicted in this text as praying for Yahweh to come. They want Yahweh to come and to shake up the heavens and the earth, to make the nations to know that He is God, to tremble at His presence. Now watch this. What they are praying for is for Yahweh to come as He had come in the past. When you did awesome things for which we did not look, you came down. You see, the Father had come in the past. He had come out of heaven. The heavens and the earth had shaken at His presence. The nations had known who He was. They had shaken at His presence. So, let me repeat the argument very quickly, just to tantalize, just to get you interested. Let me repeat my argument. The coming of the Lord of Matthew 16:27 is the second coming of Christ. The second coming of Christ of Matthew 16:27 is the coming of the Lord of 2 Peter chapter 3. The coming of the Lord of 2 Peter chapter 3 is the coming of the Lord foretold in Isaiah 64 to 66 to bring in the new heaven and the new earth. But the coming of the Lord of Isaiah 64 through 66 would be a coming of the Lord as Yahweh, as the Lord had come in the past. But the Lord had never bodily, visibly, physically descended out of heaven, had never destroyed the literal physical heaven and earth, had never shaken the literal earth in a visible physical manner. Therefore, the second coming of Christ, since it was to be the coming of the Lord foretold in Isaiah 64 to 66, and the coming of the Lord foretold in Isaiah 64 to 66 was to be a coming of the Lord in the same manner as in past comings of the Lord, that means the coming of the Lord of Matthew 16:27, which was to be in the glory of the Father, was not to be a literal, visible, physical descent of Jesus out of heaven. He was to come as the Father had come many times before. We've got a lot more on this topic, and you don't want to miss it. Thanks for joining me for Preston's Ponderings. We'll see you on the flip side.